March, in the 1st March, UAE announced to its clients, its term client, that it will increase production. So basically we have roughly 300 KBD from Kuwait, 300 KBD from the UAE, some production from Nigeria, and a lot of production, additional production from Saudi Arabia. So I think that OPEC is increasing production. We don't need a meeting. What we need to see its crude oil onto the market, and it is what's happening.
All right, Christophe Barrett, thank you very much for that. A criminal court in Egypt has upheld a travel ban on ousted President Hosni Mubarak. The decision prevents Mubarak and his family from leaving Egypt. Their financial assets and property in Egypt have also been frozen, and we can get more on this now from Ayman Muhyiddin, who's live for us in Cairo. Ayman, what more do we know?
Well, Doreen, yes, a short while ago, one of Egypt's criminal courts, which is really more of a procedure at this point, but certainly a very significant decision by the court, essentially upheld the order by the prosecutor general earlier last week when he imposed a travel ban on the former president and his family, also freezing all of his assets here in the country. That decision came a short while ago. It was widely seen to be procedural, but as I was saying, it still sends a very important symbolic message that the ongoing investigation into the former president's financial assets and any potential wrongdoing can continue. He must remain in the country, so too will his family members. So certainly it paves the way for further investigations to continue. It paves the way really for more legal challenges to continue at this particular stage.
And Ayman, separately, there were 4 men that were linked to the previous regime that appeared in court today. What more do we know on that and who those men were?
Indeed, that's correct. In fact, a series of investigations have been launched into former regime officials, including former ministers and very notable and prominent businessmen here in the country. Among the 4 that appeared today was the former Minister of Housing, Ahmed Moghrabi, an individual who was alleged to be involved in a lot of land deals in which he received kickbacks for. Again, these charges were brought against him and senior businessmen in the country, including one Emirati businessman who is being tried in absentia. We understand he actually has fled the country. We certainly know that there are a lot of Gulf businessmen who do real estate here in Egypt. We're not sure yet what his potential link is to any of the former regime, if any at all, but indeed these 4 individuals appeared in court today. It was again more of a procedural appearance. Their charges have been read to them. They all pleaded not guilty as we understand it, and their trial date has been pushed back to early April. But the most notable of those today, certainly the former Minister of Housing. He appeared in court following a previous appearance in court by the former Minister of Interior. So it seems every day more legal cases are coming forward and more individuals linked to the former regime are being brought to justice.
All right, Ayman Muhyiddin, thank you. Well, a Cash for Work program paid for by the U.S. has been set up in Afghanistan. One project that pays people to clear canals and repair property attracted almost 2,000 men in 1 week, but there are concerns over exactly who's benefiting. AlJazeera's Sue Turton has this exclusive report from Zahrei district.
Buying their way into the Taliban heartland, a U.S. program in the district of Zahrei in Kandahar that pays local people to work. Clearing canals or fixing up bombed buildings can earn them $40 a week. It's proved hugely popular. Over 1,500 workers turned up last week from all walks of life.
We're not naive enough to think that there are no Taliban working for us. In an area where the Taliban was born and really came to power, frankly, of 1,400 people, there are going to be some that are Taliban. And that's okay, because as long as they're here to help us rebuild and they're not causing problems, planting IEDs, shooting at us, then we're okay with that.
But even with some Taliban working amongst them, joining this American project is a risky business. This airstrike had to be called in after the Taliban attacked one Cash for Work site, injuring an ISAF soldier who was guarding the workers. They've warned others to stay away.
We're scared. There's no difference between you and me for the Taliban. They would slit our throats because we're working for the Americans.
The Taliban told my father he shouldn't work here.
As the foreman handed out the weekly wages, we saw some of the money being handed to men in a parked car. We're told at least half of it goes to the Taliban. One senior Afghan officer at the base said he now thinks the project is doing more harm than good. It's not the only outreach project they have. A makeshift clinic hands out medicines, and it's soon to be replaced with something more substantial.
3 months ago, the decision was made to leave a more solid legacy behind. These 4 buildings will house a school, a clinic, an agricultural training centre and a shura, a meeting room. The hope is that these bricks and mortar will stand firm against the Taliban in the fighting season and act as a reminder that the US forces provided them with something the Taliban didn't.
Word of the Cash for Work programme reached a neighbouring district. Elders turned up at the US outpost to ask the Americans to set one up locally. It's a good sign if the money goes to them and not to bolster the Taliban's funds. Sue Turton, AlJazeera, Kandahar.
In Bangladesh, Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus has lost a high court appeal against being sacked from his own bank. Last week, the central bank ordered the 70-year-old out of it for working in violation of the country's retirement laws. His lawyers argue that the bank has a special status and those rules don't apply. Well, Yunus has been an outspoken government critic who attempted to form his own political party in 2007. To Malaysia now, where the High Court has turned down a request to use DNA evidence in a trial involving an opposition leader. Anwar Ibrahim is accused of sodomy against a former male aide. The DNA was considered vital evidence for the prosecution, but the judge ruled it was obtained unfairly and cannot be used in court. Well, it's the second time Anwar has faced such a charge. He served prison time for sodomy, but was released when the court overturned the conviction in 2004.
So I think now what is left with the prosecution is to admit that they've blundered in the case, that the whole charge is, is a sacrilege attack on my character. I've denied completely this fallacious, irresponsible charge.
Well, Khoo Kay Peng is a Malaysian political analyst and joins us now live from Kuala Lumpur to discuss that case. Mr. Peng, nice to talk to you on Al Jazeera. So how big a setback is this then for the prosecution?
I think it is a very big setback because these are the only evidences that they have to link the male Y DNA to Anwar Ibrahim. So definitely it's a big setback for the prosecution.
So going forward, what does this mean for the trial then?
It means that because we have an act which is called the DNA Identification Act, it is left to be seen if the judiciary will then compel Anwar to provide another DNA sample. But arguably, that act can only be used if investigation is still ongoing. But then again, we'll have to look and see what happened next.
And what does this all say about the Malaysian judiciary system? I mean, Anwar himself was always criticizing it. So do you think his criticisms then are justified?
Well, it's justified. I think at the end of the day is that what is left to be seen is that we want to see some consistency within the Malaysian judiciary.